As tensions build up along the Ukraine and Russia border, President Tsai Ing-wen and her government are closely watching developments. Analysts in the Biden administration increasingly believe that China is gauging the U.S.'s response to the Ukrainian crisis as a proxy for how the U.S. would deal with China's increased military buildup in the Taiwan Strait. Even as Russia and Ukraine are on the brink of war, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken still went ahead with a trip to Australia last week, indicating, according to analysts, that U.S. policy on China and Taiwan will remain on track.
Relations between Russia and Ukraine, which was formerly part of the Soviet Union, are becoming increasingly inflammatory, to the point where the two are on the verge of war. Despite the two nations' long distance from Taiwan, the developments are being closely monitored by the government. The presidential office has also released several directives. The Taiwan government is calling on the two sides to strengthen dialogue and consultations while striving to maintain regional peace. Military force is not an option for resolving differences, it says. At the same time, it is assisting with the evacuation of Taiwanese expatriates and is urging other Taiwanese to avoid visiting the Eastern European nation. In addition, Russia and Ukraine are major global producers of wheat and corn. There are worries that a military clash could cause food prices to rise. International oil prices could also soar above $100 per barrel. The Taiwan government, it says, will take necessary measures to maintain the stability of commodity prices, along with the stock and foreign exchange markets. The Taiwanese military is also paying close attention to developments in Ukraine and the Taiwan Strait and is gradually improving its combat readiness in order to respond to various threats. The government also noted the use of disinformation regarding the situation in Ukraine that is influencing the morale of Taiwanese people. The government is stressing that the situations in Ukraine and the Taiwan Strait are fundamentally different and is urging Taiwanese people not to be misled.
Russia and Ukraine will involve ground warfare, while the Taiwan Strait would be a naval and air battle, so the two cannot be compared. This is also beneficial to the U.S. if it intervenes in Ukrainian ground warfare. Its air and naval forces in the Indo-Pacific won't be affected.
Even though the two scenarios are fundamentally different, China is still eyeing Taiwan, and its military pressure is showing no signs of abating. Meanwhile, Bloomberg has reported that China is studying the cohesion of the NATO alliance and how the US responds to the situation in Ukraine, which it sees as an important indicator for how the US might handle even more aggressive Chinese actions against Taiwan. However, the outcome could disappoint China's leader Xi Jinping. Even though war clouds are gathering in Eastern Europe, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken still set forth on a tour of Australia and the South Pacific. This reaffirmed the Biden administration's determination to pivot to Asia and once again stressed the long-term interests of the US in the Indo-Pacific region.
During the Russia-Ukraine crisis, Secretary of State Blinken still visited the South Pacific region to consolidate U.S.'s relations with its strategic partners and allies in the Indo-Pacific region. We can also see that the U.S. is viewing Ukraine and the situation in the Taiwan Strait separately. Mr. Xi Jinping may assess this and be disappointed because the U.S. is not neglecting the Taiwan Strait issues because of the situation in Ukraine.
Analysts are stressing that regardless of whether it's Ukraine or the Taiwan Strait, the US has plans in place.